Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Vicki Miller. You can call me Mrs. Miller. I work for the Oldham County Environmental Authority. I am the Community Relations Manager. So it's my job to go out in the community and talk to everyone that lives here, kids and grown-ups alike, about stormwater quality issues. Does that sound like fun? Yeah, it is pretty fun. So I'm here today with the Enviroscape to talk to you guys about water pollution. Okay? Yes. So I'm going to clean up the Enviroscape real quick. And while I'm doing that, I want to go over some vocabulary with you. And it's important that I go over this with you so that we're speaking the same language, right? Now, who knows the definition of the word watershed? Anybody? Don't be shy. Just in case I made a card. A watershed is an area of land where the water drains to the lowest point. So basically, the word watershed is telling you that stormwater, rain, flows downhill. Easy enough? Yeah, okay. So here is our watershed. And we're going to make it rain, okay? This is going to be our rain shower. Our stormwater, I'm still cleaning. And we're gonna talk about different types of pollution that can get into our creeks and streams. Now, have you ever heard the term runoff?
Yes.
Yes. Tell me what it means. Yes.
Is it like kind of like a stream that runs on a mountain and it comes into
Gotcha. Yes, well that's part of a watershed. How we define stormwater runoff is, are you ready? This one's long, so. Rain or melting snow that runs off the land instead of seeping into the ground. This runoff usually flows to the nearest creek or stream. The runoff is not treated in any way. So when I talk about stormwater runoff, I'm talking about when it rains, the water that runs off, that runs off the road or a roof or your driveway, okay? Now, when we were talking about the definition of a watershed, we talked about runoff runs off hard surfaces, right? But where does it go? Where does the stormwater go?
the ground.
You guys are close. You guys are all close. So, something that's really important to know about Oldham County is that our sewer system and our stormwater sewer system are two separate things. So that means that here in Oldham County, our rainwater doesn't get treated in any way before it goes to the creeks and streams. Don, don, don.
Where do the sewers go to?
So the sewers, and here's an example right here. When anything that goes down a toilet or a drain goes to a sewer plant where the water gets cleaned, gets treated, okay? And then that water is released into our creeks and streams. What do you think about that? You better hope that these people are doing a really good job, right?
I think it's kind of food.
Yes. So, what I want to talk about today are the two different types of water pollution. Now, who remembers the Gulf oil spill several years ago? Remember? Where the oil rig had a problem and hundreds of thousands and thousands of gallons of oil was dumped into the ocean? Okay, we call that point source pollution, okay? And I'll tell you why. We'll pretend that this is oil. You can see what happens to the waterway. And we call it point source because if you stand at the lowest point of the watershed, you can trace that pollution back to the source. You can point to the source. Ta-da! Okay. Now here in Oldham County, we don't have a lot of industries. Luckily, we don't have a lot of oil being dumped in our waterways. So we have a different type of water pollution, okay? And that's called non-point source. And that's what I'm gonna focus on. So in these containers, this is cocoa, Kool-Aid, lemonade, and we're going to use these to talk about different types of pollutants we can find in our watershed. So we're going to pretend this is Crestwood. We'll pretend that this is the Veterans Memorial Parkway near school, right? Now let's talk about activities we do in our everyday life. How many of you have pets? How many of you have dogs? Lots of dogs. I have 3 rescue dogs, so they produce a lot of waste. So I'm going to sprinkle some cocoa around the neighborhood to represent pet waste, okay? Now, how many of you have parents that use fertilizer on the grass to make it green and make the dandelions go away? Okay. Now, sometimes some grown-ups think, okay, well, if a little is good and makes my grass pretty green, if I put 5 times as much, I'll have the greenest grass in the whole neighborhood. I'll mow it 3 times a week and everyone will be super jealous of my yard, right? We all know that guy, right? Fertilizer is comfy. So we're going to use the orange Kool-Aid to represent that fertilizer. Now let's go down to the road. Talk about some pollution we might find along the roadway.
Wrappers.
Wrappers, trash? Okay, I'll go with it. Oh, it's purple. I know on 71, that's all I see when I'm driving, when I'm a passenger, when I'm driving actually, eyes on the road, is I see all that litter. I see the trash, I see the styrofoam cups, the McDonald's bags. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry.
What's that little thing in water?
Oh, so this is grape Kool-Aid and it's going to represent our litter. Trash, wrappers, styrofoam cups.
Get down the bus.
Meh, meh.
Get out the bus.
Whew. Okay, and so let's talk about the farm. There's a farm across the street near your school, correct?
Yeah.
How many of you have seen the cows? Brrr. Now, I'm going to tell you a secret. Are you ready? Grown-ups can't listen. Cows don't wear diapers. So what do you think that's going to do to the waterway? No.
Polluted.
Yes. Now let's talk about the farmer down here. He just plowed his field and he decided, I'm just going to leave it. I'm not going to spend the money to plant any crops right now. So you have all this wonderful soil with all the nutrients. Maybe he has some pesticides in there. He's just going to leave it. Now use your science knowledge. What's going to happen when we introduce our rainstorm into our watershed?
Everything's gonna like flood.
Everything's gonna go in the water.
Yes. So stand back a little bit. Known to get a little crazy with the spray bottle. Now remember, this is our fertilizer.
It's all turning into Kool-Aid.
This is our litter. Sorry. I told you to get crazy with the spray bottle.
Yeah, it's rain.
Our pet waste. Ooh. The animal waste from the farm. Would you want to live near that, at the lowest point of the watershed?
Forgot the yellow stuff.
You guys are very observant. What about this? Yes. Okay. Talk to me about what is happening to the waterways. What's happening? Talk to me. Polluted, okay. So what does that mean? What's the impact? So that's dirty and yucky.
It gives us that drinking water.
It can.
It kills the fish and the smell.
That's what I was looking for. Say it louder.
It kills the fish and smell.
Kills Mr. Sorry, I've been having trouble with that all day. It kills Mr. Fish and Mr. Snail. Because when the water looks like this, they have two choices. They either find somewhere else to live or they die. So
Snail's gonna die.
So what do we do to keep this from happening in Oldham County? Well, let's start over. Clean the watershed. So what are we going to tell our neighbor who likes to use way too much fertilizer? You know, I wish I could tell people to stop using fertilizer, but how about this? We can compromise. You've learned about compromise, right? How about you just follow the directions on the packet on the fertilizer so that you don't use too much? Fair enough, right? Now, what about everyone who has dogs? Have a solution.
Pick up the
Potty train them.
Give them a bone.
This is a pet waste bag, and the Oldham County Environmental Authority gives these to the Oldham County Humane Society to pass out to the new dog owners. It goes home with the puppies that get adopted into their new homes, and it reminds the new owners that they are now pet parents and they need to remember to pick up after their pets. Pet waste is one of the top sources of water pollution here in Oldham County. So it's really, really important if you have a dog to clean up after your puppy. And that also means your backyard, right? Now, what else can we do? What are we going to tell Mr. Farmer? Right, that's a good start. That is just not going to come off. How about this? Build fences to keep the cows out of the creek.
And hedges.
Right. This is something called a berm. Now, I told you grown-ups make complicated words for everything. Basically, it's like a little hill that has trees or grass or sometimes even native plants planted on it, and it filters the water before it gets to the creek. So if the water was to run off, the soil will act like a sponge and keep all the yucky stuff so that the water that does end up in the creek is clean. Okay? That's pretty cool, huh?
Like a filter.
Yes. Good job, guys. Yes, like a filter. Something that the farmer can do is in between crop seasons, he can use like a little cover crop, which is a crop that you don't necessarily make money off of, but it will keep the roots of these plants will keep the soil in place so that it doesn't run off into the waterway, okay? And it keeps all that good soil there right on the farm. Does that make sense? Okay. Who has questions for me? Comments? Yes.
What happens to the cars?
Sometimes I use the cars to talk about what happens when there's an accident. What do you think would be on the ground after an accident? Well, gasoline, right? What if people just decided, oh, we're just gonna use a water hose and we're just gonna spray that off? Well, it doesn't help if I don't put the stopper in. Yes.
Did the dog get in some toxic waste because it's bigger than houses?
Yes, that. I take this Enviroscape lots of places. I usually even take it when I talk to grown-ups because I think it shows it's a good visual. And so I've lost pieces over the years. So the dog came from Walmart, and yeah, it's a little off proportion. So what are you guys going to do in your everyday life? Because you know what? Clean water starts with each and every one of you, and me too. So it's important that we take personal responsibility, and we think about ways that we can be good citizens and we can help keep our waterways clean. Probably the number one thing is to not litter or pick up litter if you see it. Okay, what else?
When you go in I have a creek in my backyard.
Now, I have a question for you guys. There's a big ditch in front of your school. What is that? What does it do? Why is it there? Good. It isn't a sewer, but it is part of the stormwater sewer system. Okay? And what that means is, wrong side. This is roughly where your school is, okay? Right here in the county. And all the water that runs off South Oldham High School, South Oldham Middle School, Camden Station, Kenwood Station, the contos, all that water that runs off, remember, the roofs and driveways and road, all goes into that basin. Yes. So the purpose of that basin is to take that rainwater away from the schools and the homes, and then it'll end up in the basin, and then over time it'll infiltrate, it'll absorb down deep into the ground. Does that make sense? Now I have to remind you guys, it is not a place to play. It is not a park. It can be a very dangerous place because water can move so quickly that if a kid was down there in the basin or inside one of those large pipes, it could end very badly if there was a large rainstorm. So I just want you guys to remember that. Okay. Who has questions? So where do you guys live? Which watershed do you think you live in? That's the school campus, sorry. Right here. Can you find which watershed you live in?
I have two.
Awesome. Do you live near the school? So if I had to guess, I'd say you're probably in the Harrods Creek watershed, I think, probably. If you have to get on 146, I can't find 146 upside down. Can you guys find 146 for me? You follow it up, trace it with your finger. Okay. See, it kind of splits the watershed, right? Why is this important? Why is it important that we don't pollute our waterways? Eventually. Do you know where your drinking water comes from? Like the tap? So our drinking water, and this comes from aquifers down deep, 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 deep under the Ohio River.